Captain Rin was a man who lived by trading across the stars. He was not a soldier, not a hero, just a smart trader who knew how to survive in dangerous places. His ship, the Star Raven, was old but fast, enough to outrun trouble when needed. One day, on a dusty alien planet called Varek, Rin completed a weapons deal with an alien merchant named Grelth. But when it was time for payment, Grelth looked nervous. I have no credits left, Grelth muttered, his eyes darting around. Rin frowned, then the deal is off. I don't run a charity. Grelth raised a shaky hand. Wait, I have something else. Something more valuable from behind his stall. Grelth dragged a small cage. Inside it was a girl. She looked young, her skin a pale silver tone, her long hair dark like midnight. Chains bound her hands and feet, but her eyes, glowing faintly blue, held fire not fear. She is my payment. Grelth whispered. Take her, she is worth more than credits. Rin stared at the girl, unimpressed. I'm not in the slave trade, but then... Something about her gaze struck him. She was not broken like other slaves he had seen her. Eyes stared at him like she was judging him, as if she was royalty, forced to wear chains. What's her name? Rin asked. She doesn't speak much, but they called her Serana. Grelth replied. She's trouble, but special, I promise. Rin sighed. He didn't like this, but Grelth was desperate. And Rin did need those weapons moved quickly. Fine. I'll take her, but if this is some trick, Grelth, I'll come back for my real payment, Rin warned. Grelth nodded. Quickly handing over the cage's control pad, once aboard the Star Raven, Rin unlocked the cage, but kept her wrists chained loosely. He watched her carefully, offering water and food. She didn't touch it, but her eyes never left him. What's your story, girl? Rin muttered. She said nothing, just stared in silence. Later that night, as the ship sailed through deep space, strange things started happening. The ship's systems blinked with odd signals. Encrypted data flooding the screens. Rin, confused, tried to decode it. But the language was foreign, ancient, and full of symbols he couldn't read. What the hell is going on? Rin whispered, checking the engines and systems in the middle. Of this, he found Serana sitting quietly, her hands still chained, but nearby. The ship's console blinked again. More encrypted codes appeared on the screen. Rin confronted her. You did this, didn't you? What are you hiding? She looked up slowly, her voice soft but steady. Princess? She whispered, then collapsed onto the floor. Unconscious, Rin froze, staring at her. Did she say, Princess? He dragged her to the medical pod, scanning her vitals. She was weak. Underfed, but her DNA was complex, not like any species Rin had seen before. Princess, huh? Rin said to himself, either you're crazy, or I just bought myself a royal headache. Curiosity burned inside him. If she was truly a princess, why was she sold as a slave? And why was his ship's system reacting to her presence? As the ship drifted further into space, Rin felt a shadow watching them. Something about this girl was attracting attention, and not the good kind. A flashing alert appeared. Multiple ships were tracking his vessel. Rin's gut told him this was no accident. Who are you really, Serana? Rin whispered, looking down at her sleeping form. She looked fragile now, but the fire in her eyes earlier said otherwise. He sat by her side, waiting for her to wake, because one thing was certain, he was now part of something much bigger than a simple trade, and soon the galaxy would know it too. Serana woke slowly, her body still weak, but her mind sharper than before. She opened her eyes to see Rin sitting nearby, his face serious, watching her carefully. You said something. Before you passed out, Rin said. You said... Princess Serana tried to sit up, the chains on her wrists clinking softly. Yes, she whispered. I am Princess Serana of the Zyran Empire. Rin raised an eyebrow, crossing his arms. The Zyran Empire fell years ago, destroyed by its own people. You expect me to believe you're royalty from a dead empire? Serana looked directly into his eyes. My empire did not fall by accident. It was betrayed. My family was murdered. And I was sold to silence the last of my bloodline. Her voice was cold, but her eyes burned with pain and anger. Rin wasn't sure if she was lying or telling the truth. but something about her made it hard to doubt. Still, he needed proof, if that's true. Why was my ship's system filled with weird codes after you arrived? Serana glanced at the console nearby. My blood carries royal codes. Genetic markers linked to Zyron technology. Your ship's systems are old, but some parts must be compatible. It recognized me. Rin was stunned. If that was true, then having her on board made his ship a beacon. Great, Rin muttered. That explains why we're being tracked. Serana's eyes widened. Tracked? By who? Rin showed her the blinking alerts. 3 ships have been following us for hours. They're keeping their distance, but they're not hiding. Serana's face paled. It's them, the ones who betrayed my family. They want me dead. And now you are in danger too. Rin laughed dryly, of course. Because buying a slave wasn't dangerous enough, he walked back to the cockpit, thinking hard. He could abandon her on the next planet, escape before those ships caught up. But deep inside, something stopped him. He wasn't a hero, but leaving her felt wrong. She wasn't just a slave. She was a living key to something bigger. Tell me, Rin asked, if you're really a princess, what are you going to do? Stay chained forever, or fight back? Serana straightened her back, pride returning to her tired face. If I live, I will reclaim my empire. I will find the traitors and make them pay. Rin chuckled. Big words for someone in chains. Serana didn't blink, then unchain. Me, human, and see if my words are empty. There was a long silence between them. Finally, Rin walked over and unlocked her chains. Her wrists were bruised, but she rubbed them slowly, feeling the freedom in her hands. What now? Rin asked, watching her carefully. Serana stood, though her legs trembled. Now, we survive. Together, she said, you've dragged yourself into this, Captain Rin, but I can promise you, if we live, I will reward you beyond imagination. Rin smiled faintly. And if we die? Then we die fighting, she answered, her eyes sharp as blades. Suddenly, the ship's alarms blared. The enemy ships had closed, in bounty hunters sent by the traitors. Ready to capture or kill, Rin ran to the controls. Looks like we don't have time for more promises, Princess. Serana moved beside him, her fingers dancing on the console. What are you doing? Rin asked, sending a ghost signal. It will blind their sensors for a few minutes. But not for long, Serana replied. Rin smirked. You really are a princess with secrets, as the ship jolted, dodging incoming fire. Rin muttered to himself. Next time, I'm just taking the credits. But deep down, he knew there was no going back. He had made a choice. Now, Captain Rin and Princess Serana were on the run. Hunted by forces that destroyed empires, and in the dark of space, trust was the only thing keeping them alive. Rin tightened his grip on the ship's controls as warning lights flashed all around him. The enemy ships were closing fast, their weapons charging and targeting systems locking on. Serana stood beside him, her eyes sharp, her fingers moving swiftly over the console. I've jammed their sensors, but it won't last long, she said. Her voice steady despite the chaos. Rin grinned. That's good enough. Let's show them how fast the Star Raven can fly. He pushed the engines to maximum, the old ship, groaning under the sudden speed. Outside, the blackness of space blurred as the ship darted through asteroid fields. Chunks of rock floated everywhere, deadly obstacles that could crush the ship in a second. Blaster shots fired from the enemy ships, red beams cutting through space. Rin twisted the controls, dodging narrowly, the ship shaking with every close. Serana held onto the console, her face pale but focused. You're insane, she muttered. Rin laughed. Maybe, but we're still alive. One of the enemy ships caught up, faster and more agile. It fired a missile. The alarm screaming louder. Serana's eyes flashed. I can disable their targeting, but I need time. Do it, Rin said. I'll keep us alive until then. He dove the ship down through a thick asteroid cluster, the ship scraping. Against rocks, sparks flew, metal groaned, but the missile followed closely. Serana's hands flew over the keys, ancient codes flashing on the screen. The missile locked closer. Just seconds away from impact. Now, Serana, any time now, Rin yelled. Serana pressed the final key. sending a wave of interference directly to the enemy ship. Its targeting systems glitched. The missile lost its lock and veered off. It crashed into a large asteroid, exploding in a bright fireball. The shockwave hit the Star Raven, throwing it off course, but they survived. Rin chuckled. Catching his breath, "Nice work, Princess." Serana smiled faintly. "I told you. I'm not just a slave," but the other two enemy ships weren't giving up. They circled around, preparing for another attack. "We can't outrun them forever," Serana said. "We need a plan," Rin thought fast, then remembered a nearby planet. A dead world full of ancient ruins. If we can reach that planet, we can hide in the ruins. Maybe even find old tech to help us, Rin suggested. Serana nodded. "Then go. I'll keep their systems distracted." Rin adjusted the course, the engines roaring louder. The enemy ships followed, firing constantly. Blasts hit the rear shields, weakening them. Ship's energy was dropping fast. Serana worked quickly, sending false signals, creating ghost images of their ship to confuse the pursuers. For a moment, it worked. One of the enemy ships fired at the fake signal and drifted off course. The dead planet appeared ahead, gray and broken, covered in craters and shattered structures. Rin aimed for a narrow canyon. "Hold tight, Princess. This is going to be rough." The Star Raven dove into the canyon, rocks scraping the hull, but it provided cover. The last enemy ship chased them but struggled in the tight space. Rin weaved through the canyon, then spotted a hidden cave. "That's our shelter," he said, steering the ship inside. The enemy ship fired one last shot, but it missed. Inside the cave, the Star Raven landed hard but safe. The enemy ship hovered outside, scanning, but the thick rocks blocked its sensors. Eventually, it gave up and flew away. Silence returned. Only the hum of the damaged engines filling the air. Rin slumped back in his seat, exhausted. Serana sat beside him, breathing heavily. "We made it," she whispered. "Barely," Rin replied, wiping sweat from his brow. Serana looked around the cave. The walls marked with ancient symbols. "This planet, ... these ruins. They might be older than my empire," she said. Rin looked at her. "Think we'll find something useful here?" Serana's eyes glinted with curiosity. "If we're lucky, we might find more than just shelter. We might find power." Rin chuckled. "Princess, you have a strange idea of luck." But deep down, he felt the same. They had survived the first hunt. But the real danger was just beginning, because wherever there were ruins, there were secrets. And secrets in the galaxy always came with a price. The cave was cold and dark, but Serana walked deeper inside without fear. Her glowing blue eyes scanned the walls where ancient symbols and carvings told forgotten stories. Rin followed behind, holding a small light. His footsteps echoing on the stone floor. "What are we even looking for?" he asked, his voice low. Serana touched one of the carvings, her face serious. "My ancestors built places like this," she whispered. "They hid knowledge, weapons, and secrets in dead worlds." Rin raised an eyebrow. "Weapons? Now you're talking," Serana smiled faintly. "If we find them, we might stand a chance." As they moved deeper, the tunnel opened into a massive underground chamber. Metal pillars reached up like the bones of a giant beast. Lights flickered faintly along the walls. At the center stood a large, ancient machine, covered in dust, but still humming with weak energy. "What is that?" Rin asked, his eyes wide. Serana stepped forward, brushing dust off the control panel. "It's a royal AI core," she said softly. "It holds the knowledge of my people, our history, our technology." She pressed her hand against a glowing circle on the panel. Suddenly, the machine came alive, lights flashing, sounds humming through the chamber. A hologram appeared, showing a tall figure made of light. Its form graceful yet stern. "Identity confirmed," the hologram said. "Princess Serana of House Zyron, welcome back." Rin stared in disbelief. "I guess you weren't lying," the AI continued. "Princess, your empire has fallen. Your bloodline was betrayed by the Council of Fangs, the traitors who now rule under false banners." Serana clenched her fists, her eyes burning with rage. "I will take back what is mine," she whispered. Rin crossed his arms. "Okay, Princess, but how? We've got one old ship, 2 people, in a galaxy full of enemies. Serana turned to the AI. What resources remain? The AI responded, hidden arsenals, old warships buried in secret locations, and loyalist cells scattered across systems, but without leadership, they are lost. Rin shook his head. We can't do this alone. Serana looked determined. We won't. But if I can awaken the loyalists, we can rebuild. The AI then said, there is a risk. Activating me sends a pulse, a signal. The enemy will detect it. Rin's face darkened. You mean they're coming? The AI nodded. Yes. Already moving toward this world. Rin cursed under his breath. We don't have much time. Serana walked up to Rin. Her expression strong. You helped me when you could have left me. Now I ask you to stand with me. Help me reclaim my throne. Rin looked at her, seeing not a slave, not a broken girl, but a leader. Fine, princess. I'm in, he said. But I want 2 things. My ship upgraded and a share of the glory. Serana smiled. You'll have both. The AI projected a map showing hidden armories on the planet. Ancient weapons stored underground. We'll start there, Serana said. Her voice full of new strength. Rin nodded. Let's gear up before the bad guys arrive. As they prepared to leave the chamber, Serana looked back at the AI. Prepare for war, she ordered. The AI's eyes glowed brighter. War protocols initiated outside the cave. The sky above the dead planet changed. Enemy ships entered the atmosphere, hunting. But this time, they wouldn't find a helpless princess. They would find a warrior rising, and a human ready to fight beside her. Rin and Serana moved quickly through the ancient tunnels beneath the dead planet. The AI guided them with glowing maps showing paths to old armories hidden deep underground. Their footsteps echoed in the hollow chambers, dust and time covering everything. Finally, they reached a sealed vault, its doors thick with alien metals. Serana pressed her hand to the control panel, her royal blood activating the lock. With a heavy groan, the vault doors opened, revealing rows of powerful weapons, sleek armor, and strange devices. Rin whistled, his eyes wide. Well, princess, now we're talking. Serana smiled faintly, but her eyes remained focused. This is only the beginning, she said. She suited up in light armor designed for her ancestors, the plates fitting her perfectly as if made for her. Rin grabbed a plasma rifle, testing its weight. Let's hope these still work, he muttered as they loaded supplies. Rin heard his communicator beep softly. He frowned and checked Itan. Old contact was trying to reach him. It was Darrow, an old smuggler Rin had worked with before. Rin, you still breathing? Darrow's voice crackled through. Barely, Rin replied. What do you want? I've been tracking your signal. Heard there's a bounty on your new passenger. Big money, Rin, Darrow said, his tone sly. Rin's eyes narrowed. Stay out of this, Darrow. She's under my protection, but Darrow chuckled darkly too. Late friend, I've already sold your location. Rin's heart sank. You bastard. He whispered. Darrow laughed. Nothing personal, just business. Then the line went dead. Rin clenched his fists, his mind racing. Serana noticed his change in mood. What happened? She asked. We've been betrayed, Rin admitted, his voice heavy. An old contact sold us out. They're coming. Serana's face hardened. Then we fight, she said simply. Minutes later, shadows moved at the cave entrance, heavily. Armed mercenaries, hired by the same enemies who wanted Serana dead, flooded in. Rin and Serana took cover behind stone pillars, weapons ready. The first shots rang out. Plasma blasts cutting through the air. Rin fired back, his aim sharp. Dropping the mercenaries fast, Serana moved like a shadow. Her new armor making her faster and stronger, she threw a small energy grenade. The explosion sending enemies flying, but there were too many, and they were closing in. Suddenly, Rin was hit. A plasma shot grazing his side. He cried out, falling to his knee. Serana screamed his name, her fury igniting. She charged forward, her blade slicing through enemies with precision. Every strike was swift, her movements fueled by rage and pain. Rin, bleeding but conscious, watched her fight. She wasn't just a princess, she was a warrior, a leader born for battle. the mercenaries began to fall back. Realizing she was no easy target, finally, the last enemy fled. Leaving behind silence and bodies, Serana rushed to Rin, helping him sit up. "You're hurt," she said, her voice trembling. "I'll live," Rin muttered. Wincing barely, Serana's hands shook slightly, but her eyes burned with determination. "This is my fault," she whispered. "They came for me." Rin grabbed her wrist gently. "No," he said. "We made our choice, princess. We face it together." Serana looked at him, something softening in her expression. "I will not lose you," she promised. "Good," Rin smiled weakly, "because I'd hate to die before I see you take back your throne." She helped him to his feet. They were bloodied, bruised, but alive, and in that moment, they knew the fight ahead would only get harder. But together, they would endure. Serana stood taller, her heart now burning with a warrior's fire. She was no longer just a hidden princess. She was the last hope of her fallen empire, and with Rin by her side, she was ready to rise. The cave was quiet again, but the air was heavy with smoke and blood. Serana sat beside Rin, wrapping his wound carefully with a medic patch. Rin winced, but stayed silent, his eyes watching her face closely. She looked different now, stronger, her movements sharper, her gaze burning with a new fire. "You don't have to do this alone." "You know," Rin muttered. Serana shook her head, her voice steady. "I'm not alone anymore," she said. "You stayed?" "Even when it meant your life," Rin smirked weakly. "Guess I'm a fool." Serana stood, looking at the fallen mercenaries around them. "This has to end," she whispered. "I can't run, I can't hide. If I do, more people will die because of me." She stepped to the old AI core, still glowing faintly in the chamber. "Activate the armory," she commanded. The AI's voice echoed, confirmed, royal protocols unlocked. Access granted, metal walls shifted, revealing a deeper chamber filled with ancient armor, weapons, and tech that hadn't seen light for centuries. Serana approached a tall suit of battle armor, dark silver with glowing blue lines. She touched it gently, remembering stories of her ancestors who wore such suits into battle. Without hesitation, she began suiting up. Piece by piece, the armor clicked into place, fitting her perfectly, like it was made for her bloodline. Rin watched from his seat. "Impressed, I've got to admit, princess. You look terrifying," he said with a grin. Serana looked at her hands, now covered in powerful gauntlets. "No more chains," she whispered. "No more running." She turned to Rin, her voice firm. "From this moment, I'm not just a princess. I am the last warrior of Xiren." Her eyes glowed brighter, matching the armor's energy. Rin tried to stand, but groaned in pain. Serana rushed to help, her new strength making it easy to lift him. "Easy, Captain," she said. "We'll patch you up properly before we leave." Rin chuckled. "Leave? Where exactly?" Mana smiled. "To war." She looked to the AI, sent a message to all remaining loyalists. "Tell them they're princess lives. She's taking back the empire." The AI's lights flashed, signal prepared, but beware. "This message will reach enemies as well. I want them to hear it," Serana declared. "I want them to know I'm coming," as the message beamed across space. Two distant worlds and forgotten allies. Rin leaned back. "You really think they'll answer?" he asked. "They will," Serana said, confident. "Xyrenes never forget their blood. Neither do our friends." She helped Rin back to the ship, her armor shining even in the shadows. The Star Raven's engines still worked, though barely. Serana began repairs, her enhanced strength making the job quicker. Rin watched her, smiling to himself. "You've changed, princess," he said softly. Serana looked at him, her expression softening. "I had to, Rin. Because you believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." They stood together, two survivors, but no longer hiding. Serana was now the warrior her people needed, and Rin, the human who stood by her side. Somewhere in the dark of space, the enemies heard the signal. The hunt was no longer for a runaway princess. Now it was war against a rising queen, and this time, she was ready. The Star Ravens soared through space once more. Repaired but still scarred from battles, Rin sat in the cockpit, his side bandaged. Pain still sharp but his spirit alive. Beside him stood Serana, armored, proud, and no longer the fragile girl he first saw in chains. Her message had already spread across the stars. Loyalist signals were returning, one by one, scattered warriors, old generals, hidden colonies. They all heard her call. Many thought she was dead, a lost name from a broken empire. But now they knew the truth. The last princess of Xiren was alive, and she was coming back for her throne. On a small screen, more responses flickered in. Names and faces of distant aliens pledging loyalty. "We have your back, princess," said one old general, his voice rough with age. "Xiren still breathes," said another. A young warrior with fire in her eyes. Rin watched quietly, a smile tugging at his lips. "Looks like you're building an army," he said. Serana nodded, her eyes shining with resolve. "I'm not just building an army, Rin. I'm rebuilding my people." But the enemy wasn't silent either. Across the galaxy, traitors who betrayed her family prepared their forces. They sent assassins, bounty hunters, fleets of warships. They knew Serana's return meant the end of their rule, and they would rather burn the galaxy than let her take back what was hers. Rin stood up slowly, despite his pain. "What's the plan then, princess?" Serana turned to him, her voice steady. "We gather our allies, we strike the betrayers where they're weakest, and then we march on the capital." Rin chuckled. "Sounds suicidal." "I love it." Serana smiled faintly. "I need you with me, Rin. Not just as my pilot, but as my friend." Rin raised an eyebrow. "Friend? After all this, I think we're past friends." Serana laughed softly. "Perhaps you're right." "Then you'll be my first human knight," Rin smirked. Knight, Rin, has a nice ring to it. Their bond was no longer just of survival. It was forged in blood, fire, and trust. Together, they weren't just escaping death. They were chasing destiny. The Star Raven's engines burned bright as they jumped to hyperspace. Their next stop, an old warship graveyard, where powerful ships slept under dust and ice. If they could awaken those giants, Serana's army would have its fleet as they vanished into the stars. Serana looked ahead, her voice low but full of promise. "Oh, the galaxy will remember me," she whispered, "and they'll remember the human who stood by me." Rin added with a grin, "The princess and her knight, on a path to reclaim an empire. Their war was just beginning, but their legend was already alive."